how y'all doing this morning? Good?
Good. How are you?
Great, thanks. We're a small but enthusiastic crowd. So today I'm talking about product building for idea people. And this is all about the heart of UX and UI. And behind it is a book that my colleague Heather O'Neill and I wrote called Before You Code. I have a copy here to give away. Woo! All right, so y'all Drupal people, right? Everybody a Drupal person here?
Woo!
Yay, Drupal! I'm not a Drupal person, sorry. I was a Joomla person back in the day. Still love it. I'm sort of becoming a WordPress person a little bit, but really I'm all about HTML and CSS. Drupal's just gotten too big and heavy for me. That's not really where my skill set is. But I think you guys do great work for those big sites that require Drupal. So here's what we're going to talk about today. Your typical product process. And by product here, when you hear me use the word product, I'm really talking about websites or web applications, right? So it could be your whatever Drupal website you're building now, maybe you're making it a web app. It could be a whole full mobile application, just to define that word product. So often what happens is you have an idea. Your ideas come to you in the shower in the morning? Anyone? That's where mine do. Okay? So you have this fabulous idea. You're like, oh my gosh, I have the idea for the most greatest thing in the world. So you sit down and you start coding it. Yeah, let's code that thing. Spin up that instance of Drupal and let's start throwing stuff in there and it's going to be great. And then we're going to hope it works. Woo! Right? Let's just hope that everybody else in the world thinks the way you do and thinks that your product works exactly the way that you think it should. Because if you build it, they're going to come, right? Yeah, of course. Of course they're going to come. That's what social media is for. And of course, by they will come, it could just mean raw traffic. It could mean people are actually downloading your thing or using it or signing up or giving you money, or there's a whole lot of metrics that we can put in for success, right? And we're all guilty of this. So this is my website at Harvard. So Harvard has an Open Scholar, a big Open Scholar farm that they run. And pretty much anybody can go and spin up an instance of Open Scholar to put up a website about whatever they want. So I was hired to put up an Open Scholar website for the Extension School in their capstone program. And so the first thing I needed to do was figure out Open Scholar, because it is not the most usable thing in the world. And so I went ahead and I signed up for a copy of Open Scholar and I put up a little academic website that's sort of about me. And I promptly forget about it. Okay? The last time I did this talk was in April. I have not even looked at that website since then. So we're all guilty of this, right? My whole goal of this website was to learn Open Scholar, which I did successfully. And now I have this thing out there that I have to remember to update with the latest information, right? And I am not the only one guilty of this. If you go to openscholar.harvard.edu, you'll see all the stats for the various instances that have been spun up and who's visiting the site and so forth. And I took this screenshot on April 5th at 9:13 a.m. And if you see that far right box there, it says the sites created today are 6. It's 9:13 in the morning and there were 6 sites created already. That's a lot of people clicking on that button to spin up an instance of a new website, isn't it? Even at a place as big as Harvard. And even if we charitably think that that is a count for the last 24 hours instead of maybe since midnight, that's still a lot of sites for one random day. Wouldn't you agree? So we're really not putting a lot of thought into how we put our process together here. We're just coming up with these cool ideas and we're hoping something sticks, right? So this isn't really the best process in the world. We have a different process that we describe in the book. And so we still want you to have those great ideas in the shower, but then there's a couple of extra things we'd like for you to do, and I'm going to tell you all about them. First of all, validate that it's actually a reasonable idea. Sometimes I have these great ideas in the shower in the morning, and then I don't have the time to actually start coding it or whatever. So I'm off on my day and I'm doing whatever I do. And about 3 or 4 hours later, I realized it was a really terrible idea, right? Because I've actually thought about it a little bit at that point. There's some other ways that you can validate your idea. There's some planning that you should do. I'm going to talk about that very, very briefly. Then, of course, we have design work that you can do, and making sure the design is actually going to work. And then finally, of course, then we get to code. So what we're talking about is between idea and code, we're going to add about 4 extra steps. I'm going to tell you what's covered in all of those. Now, this process is a course that I teach at Harvard. Okay, so that's a full semester, 15 weeks. Yeah? It could be an entire degree program. If you go to Bentley University, you can have a whole degree in this. And I'm going to give this to you in the remaining 45 minutes. It's going to be totally comprehensive. All right? So first of all, let's talk about ideas. Anybody ever have a friend who says things like this? It's like Uber, but for dragons. Okay? People have all these crazy ideas. And the real question is, what is that problem that it's trying to solve, and who is it solving it for? Okay? What is the problem solved, and who are you solving it for? Because this doesn't say anything about that. All right? I'm not sure dragons have an issue needing Ubers. Just saying. Call me crazy. So I have a story for you. It's a really old story, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway, because the story is still a really good one. It was my very first website that I ever built. It was back in September of 2001, specifically September 10th, 2001 was my very first client meeting. And it was with this guy. He was a home builder. He built this lovely house here. He has 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, 11 skylights there in the middle over the kitchen. You see the swimming pool. That balcony there over that window on the left side, that's got rails so you can roll the bed out to sleep under the stars. Pretty sweet. There's a bocce ball court that's not pictured here. Anyway, this house is in East Somerston, Vermont. Anyone ever been there? Hey, one person. Nice. East Somerston, Vermont. And he's going to sell this house for $1.875 million. Anyone know about the people who live in Vermont in that area? Brattleboro area? Are they making enough money to buy a $1.875 million home? Yeah, no, they're not. And in fact, at that point in time, the median income was about $40,000 in that part of Vermont. So who winds up being the target audience for someone who wants to buy a house like this? Anybody?
An out-of-towner?
Somebody who doesn't live there, right? Okay. And so where do those people live, if we're talking about Vermont? Burlington, maybe?
Boston.
Certainly Boston, yeah? New York City, Montreal, lots of places nearby where somebody might be able to afford a house like this. Now, as I said, this is 2001. It was really radical to put real estate on the internet. And I am old enough to remember when you had to go to a real estate office and look at a notebook on the table to actually find out what houses were for sale and read the listings. You didn't do anything online. So this was a pretty radical idea at the time to build a website for a house sale. But in any case, so that website is going to be for those people. They're people who are living elsewhere. Tell me more about them. How much money do they make?
Lots of money.
Lots of money? All right. Is this their first home? Their only home? No? What is it?
Vacation.
Maybe a vacation home? What else?
Investment.
Some kind of investment? Maybe? What else?
Rental.
A rental? That would be quite a rental, and you're probably not renting it to the people in Vermont, but maybe. Now we could do an Airbnb thing. That wasn't a thing back then. What else? How about a corporate retreat? That would be kind of cool, right? So we got to get clear about who this website is for. And we already mentioned the various places people might be from. This is a great website where you can say, you put in your driving distance. So I put in a driving distance of 4-hour radius. And it's come up with all these places here where that are within a 4-hour radius, so cities where people might be interested in buying a home like this. So then we need to establish some various goals for this website. Once we've understood who these people are and who we're building for, the next thing we want to think about are our goals. So our business and our organizational goals, our user and audience goals, and our website goals. So let's put this together and I'll explain to you how this works. What would be the business goal here of this website? Anyone have any idea? What is the goal of the guy who owns the house? Sell the house. It's pretty straightforward, right? He wants to sell this house. What is the goal of the user? The people who are coming to this website, what is their goal?
Find a house,
Buy the house?
or find it.
Find the house. Okay, you want to say more about find the house?
They probably have some specific thing they want to do in the house.
Yeah.
They want to find one that, like if they swim, they want a swimming pool. They want to know the features.
They want to know the features of the house, right? So that what? They'll actually make the trip up for the weekend to come and see the house, right? Are they going to buy the house based on the website at $1.875 million? Almost certainly not. Right? We don't need to put a shopping cart on, add the cart, put in your credit card number, buy the house. Probably not a thing. We need to convince people to come up to Vermont and actually see it. So therefore, what winds up being our website goal?
Getting people to come.
Convincing people to come visit. That's it, right? So based on that, if we're here to convince people to come see this house, what kind of information do we need? Pardon? An address. An address might be a good start. What else?
Photos?
So, photos. Lots and lots of photos, right? We want absolutely fabulous photos. We need to hire a professional photographer. There were no drones in those days, so we had to hire a helicopter to take the aerial views of the house. And I said, we started on September 10th, 2001. You know what happened the next day. It took 3 weeks after that for the helicopters to get flying again. Fortunately, foliage season wasn't completely done, so we got some nice fall photos of the house from the air. Other ideas?
Parametric filters.
Parametric filters.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like the ability to filter out irrelevancies based upon a number of attributes.
Okay, the ability to filter out irrelevancies based on a number of attributes. Are there enough attributes that would be required in a place like this? For a single house?
Yeah, whether it has a garage or not.
That is true. It might be important to you to have a garage or a swimming pool or anything else, but do we have such a long list that we actually need to have a filter on it? For a single house.
Number of bedrooms.
Yeah, all that should be there. But I would argue that you probably don't need a filter. And not for a single house. If we had a whole website about a bunch of houses, that would definitely be a thing. But maybe not for a single house.
Sorry, just the beginning.
Yep, not a problem. Okay, so that's what we're going to do to convince people to come and buy that house. All right, so idea validation is our next step. And so is this actually even a good idea? Then whatever it is that we've happened to think of. Because it's always easy to assume that you have a real problem. Anybody ever built something and you wound up building it just for you? Anyone ever been in that situation? A few of us, yeah? Admit it. The older people in the audience are like, yep, been there, done that. Okay? So it's easy to assume that other people have the same problem that you do. And it's not always necessarily true, and it's not true that people think about problems the same way you do. So, how can you figure out if you actually have a problem that people are interested in? Anyone have any ideas?
You ask them.
Oh, ask them? Shocking, but true. Yeah, we can totally ask them. What else? Anything? All right, one of the things we could do, oh, by the way, of course, you know what assuming does, right? Okay? So you don't have to actually build anything to validate your idea. You don't have to do any of that at all. One of the things you could do is this. How about a Kickstarter? Let me write an actual description of my thing. Sometimes you just start writing a description and then you go, oh, wait a minute. This is a terrible idea, right? So if you actually have to write a description, sometimes and try to explain it to somebody else, sometimes that'll be enough validation to realize you got a dumb idea. But put it up on Kickstarter. Will somebody actually give you money for this thing? That's a pretty good sense of validation. And as somebody else said, talking to people. Just take people out for coffee and talk to them. I have this idea. What do you think? All right? Consider switching costs when you're thinking about validating that idea. What do we mean by switching costs? Anyone have any idea? It's kind of a businessy term. Okay, so I'm going to describe something you've all done before. Remember the moment when you realize you need a new computer? How do you feel in that moment? When IT comes to you and says, by the way, we're going to give you a new computer next week, how do you feel?
I feel kind of dread for that.
Dread? I was going to say, none of you are smiling. You all feel the pain already, right? How long does it take you to switch from one computer to another? A month? There's definitely at least one very painful week, right? Of getting things off one computer and getting them on the other and reconfiguring every other thing. Okay, so what we mean by switching costs is that, exactly that. What value is my product going to provide that makes this cost worth it? Why should I give up my current way of doing things and do the way that you're proposing? What is your product? How is that going to make my life so much better? Why do I need to go through all of that pain and suffering? Same kind of thing if you want to switch a bank, right? All of those automatic deductions and payments and so forth, you've got to switch all of those over. This is the concept of switching cost. And this is often our answer. Yeah, you may have a better and easier way to do it, but we're too busy. We're just going to keep on. My computer still boots, man. I am going to use it until it doesn't. Okay? So keep that in mind. Planning. Now this is a whole nother degree program. At the very least, this is getting your PMP, your Project Management Professional Certification from the Project Management Institute. But planning, of course, is incredibly important. Every minute split in planning saves 10 in execution. And that's at least that true. It could be more like 30 in my experience. The more time you spend planning, the better that time is spent. Okay? And the less you're going to spend all on code and so forth later. Because we all know how that goes, right? Where you install Drupal and they say they want blah, 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 and you put all of that in and they go, well, what about this other thing? You've ever had that happen to you before? What about this other thing? It shouldn't be that hard to add. And you're like, oh man. Okay? So make sure you have that plan in place first. The kinds of things that you want to know and when you're putting together the plan. Where exactly are you going? What is it going to take you to get there? All right? If I know that I'm building a website that has the following features, what am I going to need to think about? Anybody? I'm going to build a website that has a ton of features, blah, 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 blah. What do I need to know to get from where I am to where I'm going?
The end result.
The end result? A clear picture of the end result?
Mapping out each step in the process.
Maybe mapping out all those steps?
The people involved in the
Ooh, yeah, the people. Who are the people with the skills, right? I hate search engine optimization with a passion of 500 fiery suns. I really despise it. I'm going to hire that out. My design skills are terrible. I'm going to hire that out. But when it comes to HTML and CSS, I'm really good at that. I'm going to do that stuff. Okay? What else? What are the modules we're going to use? Yeah? Think about that kind of stuff. And so there's a whole bunch of these things. I could spend an entire talk talking about what all these things are. But basically, yeah, you're going to spell all of this out in great detail. It may be part of your proposal process as you're responding to the client. It may be deliverable as part of that first meeting. As you get more clarity from the client, what exactly it is that you're building, you're going to deliver them something like this, right? You're going to tell them, if you're late in delivering your content, this is the consequence. Because y'all are totally doing that, right? What a shocking idea. I had a friend who ran a web development firm who would charge his clients $500 a week for every week they were late delivering their content. Ooh. That was pretty motivating, get them to deliver their content on time. Because we always know that's a thing, right? Okay. Then we're going to get to our design stuff. So now finally we start doing what a lot of you would consider fun. Okay. What exactly is this thing and how's it going to look? How's it going to function? And this is where we do the live demo. So, have you all seen this site before? Y'all know this site? Nope. Okay, this is Lynx Cars. All right, lynxcars.com. And I'm just going to make sure we're here.
in stereo.
Is she in stereo? I didn't put my sound on. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to scroll on down here. Okay, so you're all looking. Feel free to pull it up on your phone. It looks different on your phone. Equally silly, but different. Okay, and so this is what's going on here at Ling's Cars. And then we get down to the bottom, which is my favorite part. Okay, we have any code nerds in the room? Code nerds? Be loud, be proud. Woo! I got something else for you.
Oh, what in the world?
Sweet, huh? Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome. By the way, this is her marketing. This is her nuclear missile truck. She parks it on the side of the freeway. Her pet nuclear rocket. There she is on it. It's an actual genuine Chinese truck for hauling missiles that she bought. She has a whole story about it. There it is, parked on the side of the road on the freeway there. There it is again. Anyway, you can go through here and have a look. Make sure you got a clear half an hour before you go take a look at Ling's site. Anyone believe this is actually a real thing? Would you rent a car from her? Anyone?
I think she's brave.
Ooh, why is she brave?
Because I haven't seen this before, so this is a very kind of like specific presentation. So I like the way she's pretty brave and on the edge, so I definitely rent a car from her.
She's brave and on the edge, and I'd rent a car from her. Yeah. Yeah. She's got a brand here, doesn't she? She's got a brand here. All right? Anyone think this site is successful? Is she doing well? How many say she's totally successful?
I need to check Google Analytics.
Okay, you can't check Google Analytics, but you know, who thinks she's renting cars at least enough to make a living?
I think she does.
Yeah, a few of you, but the minority, okay? Up here on the top in very, very tiny letters, it says in 2016 I leased over 85 million pounds worth of cars. She's in the UK. 85 million pounds worth of cars. Pounds being a unit of money, right? 85 million in 1 year. Now how many of you say, is she successful? Yeah? Okay. But she's got a brand, right? She's got a serious brand here. And so, like I said, take some time to take a look at her website because it is fabulous. And I think it's one of the best websites out there on the internet. And the reason why is because she is exactly as you said, she is brave. And what she says about her theory is this: my website is carefully designed to polarize visitors. You polarize out, some polarize in. Easy. Her philosophy is, I want to do business with fun people. I don't want to do business with boring people. And so she put together a website that polarizes out boring people. I think that's fabulous. Yeah.
That gives me an idea. I think maybe political leaders use this same philosophy, polarize people.
Yeah.
That's how they like get the brand out.
Yeah, we might do. We may very well do the same thing in politics, polarizing people in and out in a different kind of way. This is mostly doing it through design. But yes, so this is what Ling is doing. And I wish more websites would do this because I think it's really fun, really different. Remember that design shooting for usable is like a chef shooting for edible, okay? So it's not always about that generic, polished sort of look that seems to be going on out there these days. That's part of the reasons why Ling's site stands out so much, because she is definitely trying to reach a certain target audience, and she actually has a design that reflects that. And she is cool with people not doing business with her. So many people these days are saying, well, our target audience are people who blah, 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 whatever the list happens to be, but then they want to put together a site that doesn't offend anybody. We're going to make it bland, we're going to make it generic, we're going to make it pretty, and we're going to hope that maybe anyone who is always the wrong answer for who is going to be visiting your website. There's other elements you might want to think about when working on design. Here's some of them. Communicating safety. Am I going to get hacked if I actually use this website? Some of you might have wondered that about Ling. Utility. Is it actually going to get the job done? Right? Communicating that. Effectiveness is it going to get the job done well? Ooh. Efficiency is it going to get the job done well and easier than whatever I'm currently using? Is it satisfying to use? Okay? And then finally, is it fun? Can you actually aim for the top of this pyramid? Is it actually fun to use? Not just effective, not just it gets the job done. Is it actually fun? Right, so once you've kind of done some wireframing, you have some ideas about what this thing looks like, design validation is always a good step to do next. Notice we're still not coding. You could get all that design stuff done using various tools like Balsamic or Mockups is the one that we usually use in class, Adobe XD, Sketch. There's approximately 5 bajillion different packages for putting together these kinds of designs. And then you can go on to your design validation. So is it actually going to do what you expect it to do? Anybody ever had a phone call with a client and basically they called you up and they said, hello, I'd like a website. I'd like it blue and I'd like it to be simple and intuitive. How much will that cost? Okay?
Too much white.
But too much white. Yeah, not too much white. Fortunately, blue was on sale this week. So simple and intuitive, right? What do we actually all mean by that? When they are saying simple and intuitive, what they mean is, of course, for the target audience, it's simple. I'm not confused. I'm not confused. And it's easy for me to understand. The problem is this has to be in the context of your target audience, not just your client. Sometimes your client isn't your target audience, but we all know the client is going to want it to be simple and easy to use for them, right? And intuitive, it's going to match something I've used before and I get how this works. So I know what's going on here. I get it. All right? A good way to think about this is a concept called mental models. That's a whole nother talk. Mental models basically say this. If it's search, it works like Google. If it's a shopping cart, it works like Amazon. Right? We have these patterns that are out there. We expect everybody's search to work like Google's. We expect everyone's shopping cart to work like Amazon. And what happens when you click the default little search box that shows up there in Drupal? Anybody? Does it work like Google out of the box? Oh no. Your search is terrible, isn't it? Joomla's search is terrible, WordPress's search is terrible. There's a lot of tweaking you got to do to make a decent search, right? These are not easy things. But yet, we put them in our CMSs, we click the button, and we assume, and then people see the search box and they expect they're going to get great results like they do with Google. And when they don't, they get very frustrated. Most people have learned the workaround now that I just have to go out to Google and actually search your site with Google. But isn't that kind of sad? You're going to put a sucky search in, don't put it in at all. All right? Use the user's language. One of the big violators, anybody old enough to remember when Starbucks first came out? And there was a whole bunch of this sizing thing that happened. Some of you may look at this and go, oh yeah, well, I know exactly what those words mean. But when they first came out as a thing, there was a lot of confusion, and the baristas were really snobby. If you went in and said, I'd like a medium coffee, they went, well, what do you mean by medium? Do you mean a grande, or do you mean a tall? It was really a horrible experience. So think really hard if you're going to rename what people already understand right off the bat. Okay? Because people already understand what those words mean. They already know what's going on. And if you insist on changing those words, at least make them something fun. Okay? Make them something fun. Make it comprehensible to the person who is visiting. Yeah? But I would argue you don't actually need to change those words at all. All right. User testing in context. Anyone ever heard of drunk user testing? That is actually a thing. I think if you Google for drunk user testing, you can find people out there who will go ahead and get drunk at your expense, and we'll test your website for you. And because, of course, being drunk tends to lower one's IQ a little bit, and so that the concept of that is somebody who's less talented than me can actually use the website, right? I am not a fan of drunk user testing. I think user testing is really important. But the context of doing that user testing is also really important, okay? And so I did have a student who did drunk user testing as part of his capstone project, but he was building an application called Night Out. And the concept of Night Out was it was going to be this little thing that ran on your phone, and it'll take your geographic location and it'll tell you what bars are nearby, what the cover charges are, level of noise, what was going on. So in other words, you can go find the party, or not go find the party, but still get a drink, hear each other talk, for the old people, you know, that kind of thing, right? And he actually did take his designs out to a bar, buy people a drink, and have them try out his application. So in that context, it actually made sense because people would probably be drinking using that kind of application. But in your cases, I would encourage you to do some user testing, even at this level. You haven't installed Drupal, you haven't done any coding, you've actually just done some designs. Start showing them to people, have those people get a sense of, is this actually going to work for me? Can I actually navigate through this application? You'd be shocked how many people have trouble with some of these simple mock-ups that we make. All right, and so finally, once you've gotten through all of that, you have a general idea of the design in the user context and so forth. At that point in time, the code step happens, and code could be now you can install Drupal and load it all up with all your modules and blocks and whatever else you got going on. So the checklist is very simply this, right? So make sure you have an idea that solves a real problem. Remember, there's lots of ways that you can verify that that idea is going to solve a real problem, using Kickstarters, talking to people, that kind of thing. Validate that people are going to want to pay for that. That's a good way to do that through a Kickstarter. Mapping out what you need to get there, the people, the technology, all the rest of it. Making sure you've designed a solution that's tailored to your specific audience. You understand who those users are, you understand the process that they go through in order to get things done now, how you're going to change that the switching cost is worth it, and then making sure that you've tested your design and you have actually iterated on it. So you got your feedback, you've done a couple more rounds of tests. Unlike a lot of my students, when they put together their capstone proposals, they put in user testing and they put it in like the week before it's due. It is too late, people. It's too late. You might as well not do user testing at all. Okay? Do your user testing way early on. Do it through your development process to make sure you're on the right track. Don't do it at the very end. It's pointless at that point. All right? So if you've done all that, now you're ready to code. Okay? And that'll help you filter out those ideas that seem to be so fabulous when you first have them, but as you start to get into the process, you realize maybe they shouldn't actually come to light, or they're just going to get better, and you're going to be really excited about coding them still. So as I said, I have a book here. I'll give it away to the best question that I get from the audience. It is autographed by both Heather and I. The book here, this is of course the Dead Tree version. There is a Kindle version available as well, and it comes with a workbook. The workbook's a PDF, so you can type in it and answer all the questions that go with all the chapters here. Ooh, so cool. It'll walk you through the whole process of planning your next project. You need this. And this is me. I'm Jen Kramer. Thank you so much for coming, and I'd be happy to take some questions. Thanks. Yes, in the back.
Is all of this before you code work, is that built into the client's budget?
Yes, I would build this into the client's budget, absolutely.
And what if the client is so small they do not have a budget, and your shop is small, they do not have the time to do all of that?
And how do you do this if everything is small, small, small? We're talking what, a 5-page website?
Well, not that quite that small, but you know, like a $5,000, $10,000.
$5,000 to $10,000 website?
Yeah, and
So-
you want all this stuff, and that, you know, that gets put, the
Right.
report stuff gets pushed way. We don't really need that, we know what we want. kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't need any of that. We know exactly what we want.
We don't need QA either.
Yeah, we don't need QA. It's going to work just fine because Drupal works great right out of the box.
Yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, we don't write any bugs. So, there are a couple things about that. So first of all, I've worked many times on a budget like that, and I often do a lot of this as part of the initial client meeting. And what will happen is when I start asking questions, like, who is this for? They kind of go, oh.
It's for them.
Yeah, it's for them, those people. Yeah, so you can fold a lot of it. You can make a condensed process out of this and kind of hit those high points. At the very least, you can make it clear to them that they haven't actually thought all of these issues through and that you can't promise any, yes, I can be your button clicking person. I can click the buttons with the best of them. And if that's all you want, great, that'll be a great job for me. But I bring more value to the table than that, and we can actually make sure the buttons I click are the right buttons. So I would recommend that kind of thing, that kind of approach. And that concept of the planning, 1 minute of planning saves 10 minutes of implementation, explaining that as you go back later, when they want to add more features, it's going to be way easier if you actually had a plan in the first place. That if you think more about your minimum viable product, because they want the Olympic-sized swimming pool and the the bed that rolls out under the stars and the bocce ball court and everything else, but you can add all of that later. Because if you don't have a living room and a bedroom and a bathroom, fundamentally, it's going to be hard living in that house, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But just like with a house, people may not realize they want to add on later, but they are going to want to.
Right.
So they feel a lot of this is extraneous.
Right. Exactly. And there, in the case of a house, you talk about resale value, that the house could be expanded later and you're going to put this in, and it costs a little bit more, but it will save somebody a lot later. It makes your site more marketable, et cetera, et cetera. And same kind of thing for a website, right?
Cool. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Yes?
I would like to know more about alternatives to validating your idea. You mentioned Kickstarter, there are other platforms like that, but even though here in the States you get them for granted, there is like 15 to 20 countries that you can use them on. And
Okay.
if you're not in one of those,
Yep.
you can do it.
Right.
So like, what other ways are good enough to validate your idea? Because I also noticed that you had like a sign-up mailing list. But if people signing up in a mailing list doesn't guarantee that they will ever buy your product.
Correct.
So like, how do you validate when the traditional methods are not available for any reason?
Okay, so the question is, Kickstarter is only available in 15 to 20 countries. What if you want to do something in another country? People will sign up for your mailing list, but sometimes they'll never take any action at all. That's all absolutely true, right? So I am not well versed in Kickstarter-like websites, although I know that there are several of them, right? So I would look for some kind of funding mechanism that works with the country of that you're trying to target in your particular case. There's probably one out there for that country or for that region of the world or something else, right? So, sorry, not the best answer, but that's the best I can do. You could try, I don't know, you could try selling a subscription kind of thing. You could make your Kickstarter on your own site, right? Give me the equivalent of $5 and I'll send you a thing, whatever the thing is, when it's available. I don't know. And have to think about that.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. For mailing lists, we know that a lot of people will sign up for mailing lists and they'll never buy anything. Okay, that's totally a thing. So you can pretty much figure that out of the 100 people that sign up for your mailing list, that maybe somewhere between 1 and 10 of them are going to convert to actually buying something. So don't get so excited when you say, oh, I got 100 people signed up for this. It's all ready to go. 100 people are interested. So now you're looking at maybe 1 to 10 people that are actually going to pay for the thing. Is that enough to get you started? It might be, right? It depends on how you're going to measure your success. It depends on what it is that you want to get out of this. So if this is going to displace your day job, that's probably not enough people. If it's a side hustle and you just want to get something started, then that's a reasonable way to go. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes?
How long did it take the house in Vermont to sell?
How long did it take the house in Vermont to sell? Well, as you know, about that time in 2001, we had some issues going on. We weren't sure at the time whether September 11th was going to cause people to want to get out of the city and all move north, and it would sell immediately because everybody wants their rural retreat because the whole world was going to go to hell in a handbasket. As it turned out, it took 2 years for that house to sell. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard sell. It's not near anything. It's a lot of money, and the economy wasn't in best shape at that point in time. So yeah, there was a lot going on. Other questions? Yeah.
I think about the lifespan of some of the projects. Right now we're in a time where everything's changing so fast,
Yeah.
including technology,
Mhm.
and there's a trade-off between the safe, stable versus more exciting, and then the question I didn't see, and I wonder where it fits, is the care and feeding of this thing after it
Yep.
has launched, and I perhaps am no longer involved.
Yes.
Where do you see that?
Okay. So all I've talked about here is the beginning of the life cycle of this product, right? So I have a great idea. This is when you're all excited at the beginning. I had this great idea. It looks like it's actually a great idea. Ooh, the users are interested in it. Okay, now I'm ready to code. And I've ignored everything that happens after that, right? So clearly there's a whole another part of the life cycle where you're going to code it, you're actually going to sell it, you're going to put it on out there. At some point in time, it's no longer going to be a thing, right? I don't know about you. When I got started in this business, I used a lot of Macromedia Dreamweaver. Yeah, Macromedia Dreamweaver 3. Woo! And I built all my websites with nested tables, layers and layers of nested tables and spacer defs. Okay? Those were the good old days, right? So that wouldn't be very useful at this point in time. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a life cycle for whatever it is that you build. And that would certainly be part of what you want to think about is, what is my goal? And that probably fall under that project planning part of it. So I would ideally like to make X amount of money from this thing over X amount of time. My exit strategy is I'm going to sell it, I'm going to run it into the ground, and then it will be dead. And hopefully by then I'll have a new idea, right? All these are legit ways of doing business. You just need to think about who you are and what you're doing and how long you would like this thing to go on for. Does that help?
Yes, I'm thinking about Drupal modules that are not yet available for 8, and people building Drupal 7 sites, and just you kind of put yourself in the situation where you go, do you jump into the future and make it more high support cost now, or do you build something stable that's going to die and have to be reborn,
Yeah. So she's talking.
How long should it live?
Yeah, she's talking about Drupal 7 modules that haven't moved to Drupal 8. So I am not part of the Drupal community. As I said, my background was in Joomla. We had similar kinds of things when we moved from one version of Joomla to another. It's an open source project. Somebody built a thing. In the Joomla community, we have a Joomla extensions website where you can put a whole bunch of your extensions. I'm convinced, college professors like me or somebody would assign students to go and build something, and they'd go throw it in the Joomla extensions directory because, hey, cool, and they'd forget about it by the summer. There were people who were using it, right? And they use it for a long time, and eventually you would get ejected from the extensions directory because it had a security issue, right? And it never ever got fixed. No one could ever get in touch with that person again. Are you having those same kind of experiences here in the Drupal community? Yeah, because I think you do a little bit more vetting here about who gets to put modules in and so forth to avoid those kinds of situations. Yeah, you got to talk to those people and ask them if they're going to move them, or if they're not going to move him, can they give this to somebody else to take over? That would be what I would suggest, because you don't charge for your modules here either, right? Yeah, so there's really no financial incentive. And that's part of it. I mean, if I'm making tons of money configuring Drupal sites and making them for people, and I'm doing great, because I'm the person behind that module, right? What's my motivation to actually bring that module into the future? If it was my strategy to use that module to launch my career making custom websites, I may not have motivation to actually move that. I'd rather just keep getting business and keep building websites. So it's tough.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Just a quick one. Why aren't you at every conference? This is so necessary.
Thank you. Why am I not at every conference? Probably because I can't be everywhere at once.
But I mean, do you do conferences outside of Drupal?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not part of the Drupal community. Really, I taught Drupal a couple of times at school. I gotta confess to you guys, I never really particularly cared for it. It was just too big for me. The usability I thought was terrible. This was Drupal 7. I've never looked at Drupal 8. So sorry guys. Pardon?
Look again.
Look again. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. Take a look at Drupal 8. It's really great now.
Yeah.
But I have spoken at lots of other conferences.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? All right. So I am here, and I think I'd like to give the book to you because you had a great point about Ling. You were the one who figured out the secret of Ling. So I have a book for you. Thank you so much. Yay. And I am up here for questions if anybody has any. Thank you all so much for coming. Go enjoy your lunch. Yay.
Yeah, so another thing I think about too is like if you look at just like the providing of services, like
Yeah.
tech services,
Yeah.
population, a lot of people just become really smarter and everything.
Yeah.
It's like you know what I noticed with some people too. There's like STEM, right? There's all these like science kind of things. If you look at the scientific method, for example, it's like a hypothesis.
Yep.
They do all the tests. Guess what you just did? You just made it practical.
That's right. Exactly.
When I was like, course 22 here in nuclear engineering,